it until I the wrestling business. Once I'm done with the in-ring and all that stuff, I will delete all of it, and people will probably never see me again.
Live in
So,
the mountain. Become a hermit.
dude, my older brother, I envy him. He
Yeah.
has no social media, has 2 properties, lives a very good life, has no reason to be on social media. Listen, for what we do, it is obviously a very big tool, and I highly encourage people to use it for its purpose. But it is draining.
I just want you to know that we are now live on YouTube.
We're live.
I'll send you the
Oh, there
link.
we are.
Yeah, I'll send you the link and all that stuff so you can share it if you want. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And we'll start exactly at 7:30. So I'll send you the thumbnail and all that.
Very good.
There you go.
You're sending it via email or Instagram?
I'll send you an IG. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Because probably easiest.
Yeah, for sure. Mike Law. I like your name.
It's so funny. I was telling my brother the other day when we were, before we got on the call, actually yesterday, I was like, I hate my name. I hate it. Colossal was a good add-on as a moniker because he needed it, but if I would go back, I would never have chosen my real name. I would have chosen something else.
Really? What
would Mike Law now. I just, I don't know, just to me wasn't, and who knows, I see like an LA Knight who's had Eli Drake and he's changed his name sometimes. I'm like, you know what, it's something that, I don't hold out the possibility that could be something I could look into in the near future. Changing my name, because not really a fan of it. Oh, nice. Oh, you got the good copy.
Yeah, man. It's finding. It's like I put you over in a thumbnail. Like I gotta make it stand over.
All right, let's do this. So how do I? So when I tag you on, let's see here. So
you can do like collaborator. You'll see collaborator, and you'll be like, okay, and it'll pop up on my posts.
Okay, so let's do the actual X. Okay. X. Let's do the link. Here you go. We are live. All right, let's get this thing going. You chose the great pictures too, by the way. Thank you. Like there's some of these companies when they choose some of these pictures, man. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, are we allowed to curse? Is that like a thing?
Yes, it's fine, bro.
Because it's just one of the things where I'm like, dude, like, and I send pictures. I always send high resolution pictures. I always send like to promoters, like the my good size. Like sometimes it's just really, listen. No one's perfect. Sometimes the angles aren't the best, and they don't get your best features, whatever. And I'm just a big believer in that. Like, I've had photographers probably gotten heat with them where I've said, "Hey, can you not post that, or can you delete that?" Like, it's just me looking out for my brand, man. Like, I'm a very big proponent of making sure that, I'm represented as good as it can be. You know what I mean? And luckily enough, we are at an era where there's plenty of great photographers too,
That's how I got my started. Actually, outside of the video game wrestling promotion that I do, I was like, I want to learn more, and I figured the fact that I know videography and photography, like I'm gonna start out like that. And I start off in Capital, then Pro Wrestling Magic, then
yes.
So like that's how I got in. That's how I learned,
Hey, do you have a Twitter?
Yeah, I do have a Twitter. It's on
Alright,
it's like XVPW_YT. You'll see.
I'm sorry, what was it? X what?
XVPW_YT.
Oh, it's X.
Yeah.
Oh, I see you. Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm.
We are live.
Yeah, man. All right, it's 7:30. I just wanna really pick your brain, learn more from a person who's basically paid their dues, and a person who I somewhat admire, you know, in the community, I guess you could say independent wrestling community or the tri-state. Because we're all
I would say that in the independent. I've been, I think my name has been out there for a while. I've wrestled for MLW, Ring of Honor, AEW.
Mm-hmm.
I've appeared on NXT stuff, and I've wrestled for Canada, Super Kicked, the Man Lucha. I've wrestled in the Dominican Republic. I've wrestled in Florida, North Carolina. So it's not.
Mm-hmm.
I don't subscribe to myself to being just like a fucking local yokel either. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I've wrestled plenty of places, New England, chaotic wrestling. So. Fight life. So I've been doing my thing all over the independents. So I would say more independence than just tri-state, because I think tri-state minimizes what I've done without a doubt.
From my experience, that's all because I'm so local in the tri. It's like you're such a big name, and I'm just like, man, this guy is everywhere, and I know you, Moff, Gangon, like those guys, like you all. Sunny Kiss. It was funny because it's when I went to Capitol, right? That one event that I was doing photography. Sunny came up to me and say, "Hey, you remember me?" I'm like, "No, why?" And like, you taught me breakdancing, and I'm like, this person must like. I'm like, cause I am a b-boy. I am a breakdancer, and I'm trying to break back to my students, and I'm like, oh my god! And I didn't know that Sunny is indie wrestler, especially a top name.
Well, now Sunny's an AEW superstar, and she certainly earned every second that they.
It's just funny. It's just funny to me, and I'm just like, wow, like a person who I taught, and I didn't even know till later on. It's like, jeez. So.
Small world.
Yeah. So what's up, guys? Welcome to the XVPW Network. I'm live and direct with the colossal Mike Law, ladies and gentlemen.
So I'm not flexing. I had to pull my tag.
No,
I could be.
I see that.
I just came from the gym, guys. Just came from the gym.
So, it's funny because you were actually outside of Bill Alfonso, who I interviewed like a few years ago. I rebranded my podcast. I interviewed a lot of people from the CAW scene, which is a create a wrestler video game promotion scene, and I interviewed like a couple people. So you are actually my first independent wrestler that I got a chance to really interview. So thank you for doing this for me, man. Do you know have you ever heard or know about CAW?
Yeah.
Yeah?
I mean, we've all had. I'm gonna say all wrestlers, but I've had CAWs made of me, and I do understand that there's a community for it. I have a cousin who's involved, and it's very cool, man. I appreciate anytime someone takes that time to, I can't say I speak for everyone, but I speak not only for myself, but probably a majority of the wrestlers and talent out there that are appreciative of that. It's a cool thing to have someone take that time, to make you as whether it's a video game, any type of art, I treasure. I consider it art, and I feel that that's one of the things that if I leave any type of impact on people where they've taken enough time to, in their day, as busy people can get to make something like that, to me it's incredible.
What's funny is some people got their start in CAW and end up becoming independent or pro wrestlers. Like, I don't know if you know Robert Martyr.
Robert Martyr?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he started. It's funny because he started.
I know Robert.
Yeah, he started in CAW. Then he was like, I really love this shit. So so I'm gonna do it. And there's a guy who Canada.
Good guy.
Yeah, he started in CAW too, but his name is Mikey Truth, and Mikey Truth started in CAW, and now he's like really trying to make a big name for himself, and like kid's athletic, really doing business in Canada. So I'm just like, it's just funny because it's so cool seeing a person that you started in a, you're trying to make a cool promotion and all that stuff, but then end up loving it and becoming like a wrestler. So it's like the new age or something, where like I kind of dig it in a way because I'm like, oh, this person's in my brother now. He's like, so if they ever mention like a bio or something, like, oh, this is like the new wave of like people who want to be in video games, but now seeing themselves really do it. It's pretty cool in a way.
Yeah, I think people are inspired in different ways. You know what I mean? I think people are inspired by the way whether it's back when I started watching wrestling, it was like one of those things where I watched VHSs. If people still remember what that is. And then we'd watch TV. Of course, we had Monday Night Raw, ECW, WCW in the early to late '90s, and I got involved when I was young. I was still 15 years old, still in high school, getting involved in a grown man sport for sure.
Yeah. So, what was your first glimpse of like wrestling to realize like I really want to do this?
I think for me, it was one of those things where I tried out for the wrestling team. I'm just going to change something here really quick. It's kind of weird that came up, but I got to do it because it's going to be an eyesore for me. It's going to be an eyesore for me and the fans that they get to see. Anyhow, so you got to see my shoot name. Big deal.
I don't think they see it. It's fine. We're live stream. I don't think they see it.
All right. Well, there you go. But just for my sake, then I had to switch it over to my wrestling name. So for me, I think it was watching Ricky Steamboat versus Randy Savage. As a kid, watching that, I was hooked on pro wrestling. Now, people are like, oh, you were a Hulkamaniac. I was definitely a Hulkamaniac. But that's the kind of thing that I was like, yo, I want to do this. You know what I mean? Like, it was a steel cage match at MSG. I think it was 87, maybe 87 or 88. And, I was still like 5 or 6 years old. And at that point, I said to myself, I want to do this, man. I want to travel the world. I want to be a pro wrestler. And I tried out for the wrestling team. I didn't make it. And then I met a promoter in Brooklyn, New York, named Pedro Rodriguez. And I don't think he'll ever get to, not that justifiably, he was kind of, I know that a lot of people think he was a carny or whatever, but a lot of people got started in a place called Arena, Puerto Rico in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, in a beat-up church, which, ironically enough, I train and I'm a coach now 5 blocks away at the Fallout.
That's
cool. Yeah, it's
yeah.
literally like 5 blocks away from where Arena, Puerto Rico was. And, guys like myself, Low Key, Homicide, Monster Mac, Lathan, the guy who trained me, Low Life Louis Ramos, another guy who helped me along the way, trained me too. Buffy Mace, the Christopher Street Connection. If you knew anything about New York Indies, you knew who those guys were. Before the Doghouse definitely gets the props it rightfully deserves, and Bobby Lombardi. There was Arena Puerto Rico, and guys like Joel Maximo, Jose Maximo, Amazing Red, Brian Excel. A lot of guys got their start there. Quiet Storm, of course. A lot of people, it's like I said, he probably didn't have the greatest reputation, but a lot of us wouldn't have found our way into the pro wrestling business without Pedro Rodriguez in Arena Puerto Rico.
How old? So you watched wrestling. You saw Ricky and Macho Man and whatnot. You were what? You said 7 or 8, or?
Nah, probably younger than that, man. Probably 5 or 6, dude. I was.
Probably, so you know what? I think you and I are the same age. Holy shit! So I'm 37. I'm 37.
I'm around there. I'm not going to reveal my age. But
I'm 37, so I know about the tapes. And I used to work at a video store, and that's where I learned about, like, FMW, AJPW, because there was a section in the video store where, like, it's a bunch of Japanese wrestling tapes, Survivor Series. So I'm like, what is this, And I got hooked. That's
very rare. That's a badass store because you couldn't get access to, like, New Japan, All Japan, or any of that stuff, unless you were dealing unless you went to the vendors like a Rob Feinstein or RF Video, obviously. That's crazy that you guys had access to that in a video
This
game.
Filipino guy was like, he got a lot of tapes, and that's what I learned about Hayabusa and all those guys. So I was a big fan. I'm like, who's this guy in the mask? Like, I really like this guy, and it
Legend.
was like Hayabusa. I was like, and I was trying to find more tapes, and I used to get in trouble because keep in mind I'm like 10, 11. This guy's just paying me to rewind tapes, all that stuff under the table.
Wow, man.
So he's like, you're supposed to be playing Titanic. What do you do watching this wrestling stuff? And I'm like, well, nobody's here. Let me watch the tapes. Like, it's like early, it's Friday. I mean, maybe people want to rent stuff. Like, here you go. So yeah.
Right.
But I learned about Hayabusa and all that stuff. It was great. It was a good times, man.
Very cool.
So, what age or how did you feel when your parents found out that I want to be like a pro wrestler? Or like, did you have a plan B? Did you had a dream? Mom was like, hey, you need a plan B.
Yeah. No, my mom was, listen, my grandfather, who passed away the year I was born, he was a huge wrestling fan, and my mom was a fan, and her family, my uncles were all like, they all used to wrestle. They made up their own ring in their backyard,
Okay.
years ago. But my mom wasn't on board with it because who wants to see their, listen, you got to realize when I was coming up in '98, like I was 110 pounds, soaking wet, dude. Like I was 5 foot nothing. I was still like, whatever height I was gonna get, it was slowly coming. And so to be in the ring with guys that were legitimately like, 300 pounds, like I'm talking about grown men, man. It was just different atmosphere back then. And, back in the day, it was a lot more gritty. They tested you a lot, physically. You got tested. Not just paying your dues. Paying your dues, that's without question. You should be doing that now anyway. I don't that's not negotiable to me in the wrestling business. But I'm talking about going in there with someone who would light you up, man. Like literally lay it in on you. Be stiff with stuff. And you had to earn the respect of the pro wrestling business. It wasn't like, oh, you came and you trained for a few months and all of a sudden you got a position or you got a job somewhere or you got the opportunity. To me, it was always like, being in the pro wrestling business isn't a right to me. It's more like it's something prestigious about it because I had to earn it. I had to fight and claw and like none of these older guys, and with all due respect, a lot of those guys didn't want to see small dudes in the wrestling business. They didn't want to see guys like me, like Amazing Red. And I'm sure Red could tell you, like he was tested as well. Like you got in there were guys that, on average, were probably 6 feet tall. Were probably over not probably, they were definitely over 200 pounds, and they were jacked, or either that or they were very heavy, and you got lit up, and you had to fight back. Because if not, you were getting eaten alive, and you don't know how many people I've seen throughout the years, especially during that time frame where they would just come in to train. Oh, they would get the shit beat out of them, and then
what's crazy?
And then you have home again. There were a lot of daydreamers that got weeded out in a very gritty way. I think if I were to say anything's missing about wrestling these days, and I don't know if that's a good or bad thing. I don't necessarily believe in beating the hell out of somebody. That's just my take. There's ways to test people without doing that. But I understood why it was done. Even at 15 years old, I understood why being tested, why guys were being stiff, why even my coaches, my trainers at the time, were laying it in. It was a privilege to be in the wrestling business, not necessarily a right for it.
You know what's crazy? I could probably relate because as a b-boy, a breakdancer and whatnot, like I started really late. I started when I was like 19 and 20, and I was like, what's this breakdancing stuff? I saw a group of people doing it, and I learned about like battling and earning your way to a dance crew. It took me at least, I think, probably 6 years till they initiated me into their crew. But I was going to jams. I learned about ciphering, and I'm like, yo, you have to handle yourself in the cipher. You just don't do whatever you're doing. Like, handle it, call out people, battle them, and that's like me trying to earn my way, like oh, who trained this b-boy or something and whatnot, like who trained you? Oh, that's them. Like, oh, that's NBK. Like, yeah, all right, they're good teachers. Keep doing your thing. Are you still in MK? No, I'm still trying to earn my dues. Pay. I'm trying to earn my way in it to that crew that taught me. Then from there, it's like, okay, you're battling so and so. You're making a name for yourself in the New York scene. I learned how to. It's funny, people get on them sometimes, but the Showtime guys, like Showtime, like I used to do that in the trains and stuff like that. I used to dance in the trains, learn.
They don't do that anymore, huh?
No. Well,
really?
it's different now. It's different now. Because back then, the B-boys back then, in the early 90s and the 2000s and whatnot, they used to do that because that was their way of practicing. They couldn't afford to go to these YMCAs and all that stuff. So what they did, they learned in the concrete and all that stuff. They learned how to be an entertainer. They learned how to... It's like old school hip-hop in a way. And now...
Yeah.
So I know about that. Like I used... Because I'm not a gymnast, none of my friends were none of my dance crew were gymnasts, but they learned how to do backflips and on concrete and all that stuff, because it's stuff like that. Or like learning how to do a windmill. I had to learn that on concrete, We couldn't afford like dance studios and all that stuff. So I
never went to the parks and like, how the parks have the rubber.
Well, sometimes they do have parks and whatnot. So we're able to practice there during the summertime. Wintertime.
Right.
It's like, okay, where can we practice? Is Supreme Beings from New York City holding a practice spot at a Boys and Girls Club? Let's rock there. We're cool with Supreme Beings. We're cool with X Fiends. We're cool with these guys. All right, But it's more that, like, I know what you're getting, because when they were training me, it's more like, okay, Max, like, do 10 rolls, do 10 baby freezes, learn your footwork, all that stuff. We'll get back to you in a second, because they were practicing. Because I know what you're saying. Like, why would I train you if you're not... if you're not consistent or if you're not taking it seriously, because, people don't want their time wasted. So I kind of somewhat understand in a way, like, oh, they're trying to train you, they're trying to, like, stiffen you up, all that. So I was like, oh man, it's almost similar in a way of like me trying to learn from my crew members in a way.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Absolutely.
All right, man. So when did you took your first bump and how did it feel?
Good question. I was 15 years old. I showed up at the Arena Puerto Rico in Bedside, Brooklyn at St. John's Gym, over in Willoughby, on Willoughby Street. Look at that. Like my short-term memory ain't good. My long-term memory is pretty damn good. And the ring that Pedro had was like built in 1970s or something like that. It wasn't meant for like small guys either, by the way. Like I same thing with the old school WWF rings. I mean, those rings weren't meant.
Even the ropes were like not ropes as they are now. Like I saw ropes and like they would lean all the way back, and I'm just like, ooh.
Yeah, and there was like the 20 by 20 ones, but regardless, like, so the ring itself was, it's stiff. You know what I mean? Like it had no give. It had the little coil in the middle of the ring, which for a lot of guys who know about that sort of thing know that it's like a death trap. It's like, if you see a spring under the ring, for the most part, it was not a good thing. You're like, oh, it's gonna suck. But that I didn't know at the time. I just wanted to be around the wrestling business, and I came in. Was, like I said, 110 pounds, 15 years old. Acne-ridden face. With pale white skin, and I just, they were really like adamant about learning your bumps back then. Front bump, back bumps, flip bumps, all that stuff, because the rings were harder back then. They were a lot less forgiving. So if you didn't master it, there was a lot more opportunity to get injured. So yeah, when I took that front bump, that first back bump, holy shit, it knocked the air out of me. Like it was like unlike any other sensation I ever felt. It was
so
like,
wait, you're 15, like you're like first step in the ring, you took your first bump and all that stuff. Like, was this after school? Like, hey, I'm gonna go to Pedro school and like.
Yeah, well, yeah, because I lived in Queens for the first part of my life, and then at 15 years old, I moved to Long Island. But I had my uncle, who's a referee. Back in a lot of these outlaw companies, he knew Pedro, so he got me in contact.
That's
cool. It wasn't as easy as like online. You could go online and Google something and be like, "Oh, there's a wrestling school down the block."
Yeah.
You had to actually like it was like the mafia. You had to know someone had to know
Yeah, somebody
somebody
had
to
to
get
know
you in,
somebody to. Yeah. Oh.
right? So I ended up training there. But funny enough, the first guy, and I do not expect him to ever remember this, but it's
Mhm.
for me a very telling thing that one of the first people I ever got in the ring with was Homicide. And
Okay.
yeah, he didn't know who the fuck I was, and I I I didn't know I had seen Homicide at a show, an outdoor show, literally like the week before. So he goes in there and he's like, "All right, work," and I go, I don't even know what he. I had no idea what he meant. You know what I mean? I was like, I just like my first day, but uh, I will say it ended with me getting hung upside down in a tree while he took my shirt off, and it was like a conga line
Yeah.
of wrestler just chopping away, and people are like, oh well, that's barbaric, and that's all uh, like people are like, well, that's barbaric. There's something bug out here. Oh, that's barbaric, and like it's 15-year-old kid. Why would you do that? And I always bring it to you like this. I say, listen, there were guys in there that if they really want to hurt me, could have hurt me and could
Yeah.
have sent me to the hospital. There's no question in my mind. So me getting lit up with a few chops, that was that to me was like the easy way out. I had heard stories, you hear about Hiro Matsuda and how he dropped his knee on Hogan's ankle,
Hmm.
breaking his ankle. Like you hear about Ole Anderson, and and back in the day how they used to stretch,
Yeah.
the Minnesota used to stretch guys left and right to get them out of the business. People constantly being tested. So for me to get hung upside down and chopped, a numerous amount of times and have the welts and
Hmm.
that, yeah, for a lot of people modern day, that probably comes off as very barbaric, and it's not something I would do. But um, at the end of the day, it was not something that it could have been worse for me. It could have, like at
Yeah.
15 years old, with some of the guys that were there, they could have easily had their way with me, and I would have had a choice because I wouldn't have known what to do anyway.
Hmm. Do you remember your first match? Who did you wrestle in your first match?
Yeah.
How
So
did
in
that
fact,
go?
back in the day, like you needed a license to compete in New York. You needed to
Yeah,
get
Loki told. I heard Loki's story about that. You had like a card or
yeah,
something.
yeah, you had a card and you had to get either three recommendations from three licensed pros, or the school that you came from had to give you some sort of certificate that acknowledged that you had been properly trained, and you had to take that to New York City, to
Mm.
Manhattan, and they had to do a physical, all that stuff. It was like you had to get blood work, and yeah, and then from there you would get your license. It wasn't as easy. So
Hmm.
there's still a lot of stuff in place that probably these days I would reinstitute just for the sake that just not everyone was able to do this, man.
Yeah.
I have to be very. I tell people when we're in training, I go, listen, I will never tell someone not to follow their dreams. If they want to be a part of this, then by all means do it. All I ask is for hard work and dedication and respect. Um, but not everyone's gonna make it, man. Not everyone whose dreams to be a superstar, it makes it to even the independent level, let alone to WWE, AEW, all that jazz. But with that being said, my first match was like in front of 15 people.
Yeah.
It was before a main show that had the commission that was supposed to be there, so the doors were locked because they weren't going to allow anyone in to see this other than like family and friends because
Yeah.
it wasn't necessarily we weren't even allowed to be inside the ring, to be honest.
Oh.
So I had a lucha mask on, and I went. My wrestling name was Sabotage at the time,
That's
and I wrestled
dope.
this kid. Yeah, yeah. It was under because I think it was me and my mom came up with it. Funny enough, we were. Sonny Bono had gotten killed in a freaking skiing accident, and
Yeah.
we thought it was weird that someone like that was known like he was had died the week beforehand as well. Like so, famous people were just dropping it. He
Mhm.
happened to be a politician, someone else was a politician, and I was like, oh well. It sounds like Sabotage, and then after, oh, okay, that sounds like a cool wrestling name because it was one word, and you had the Beastie Boys as a song, and I was like, oh,
Yeah.
well, that's my name now. Um, and then I wrestled this guy Mike Fitzpatrick, who was a good friend of mine at the time. He didn't really make it. Well, he didn't really make it. He didn't make it at all. He just he kind of just left after a year of wrestling and training. Um, And yeah, I mean, it wasn't anything spectacular, you know. In retrospect, I kind of cringe
Oh, you
how bad
did?
it was.
You
Like,
have footage of
you know,
that?
do I have footage of it? Yeah. It's on those like little tapes, you know,
Yeah.
from way back. So
Yeah.
I would digitally, get it transferred.
That's so cool. Were you
Yeah. It,
like how like so what happened and what's the backstory behind it? Like did your coach or whatnot tell you, hey, you're wrestling like tonight, but it's gonna be in front of your family, see how you do or something, or you're just
no, no. By that point, I was kind of on my own because Lathan, there was a big, huge fight that happened. People got arrested, and the doghouse ended up separating and doing their own thing. You know, Bobby Lombardi took his guys, which included one of my coaches, Lathan, Lowlife Louie. They all went to Jamaica, Queens, as they started the doghouse. And I stood in an arena, Puerto Rico, and then one of the guys who helped train me as well, Carlos Eagle Morales, he took off, and I hadn't seen him. I mean, he left. I don't know what the deal was. So I got it. I was being trained by this guy named Ricky, who wasn't really training me. He was beating the fuck out of me for like endless amount of hours. It was countless back bump, front bump, back bump. You know what I mean? It was like I wasn't really learning psychology, ring positioning. You know, if he had a cool move you wanted to practice, guess who was taking it? This guy.
Oh god.
And I think a lot of guys wrote me off. A lot of the pros wrote me off because they didn't. I don't think they took me seriously. I don't think they, I don't think they felt that I just wanted to do this. I guess I don't know. They probably pulled me in with a few other guys that were joking around too much, and it's probably why they didn't think I would either last or that I didn't want this. You know what I mean? So yeah, I wasn't getting trained. I was getting the shit beat out of me for like months on end, and I don't think the guys who were the pros, the indie guys at the time, really thought much of me either. And no, we were told way in advance that this was happening, and we went in there and we wrestled, and again, it wasn't great. I look at it like, gosh, it was like a twig. You could barely make out who it was. There was more head than there was body on that.
So when did you feel like what time period did you feel like I'm officially getting trained, or were you more hungrier to learn? You know.
I was more hungry to learn, but you got to realize, like, it was the Wild West back in the day, man. Yeah. Like, it wasn't as systematic and organized and professional as it is. Unless you listen. I'm not saying there weren't any schools that, like, I'm sure AFA, had his thing, with WXW. But I would just say in the New York scene, it probably wasn't. It was. You had to be tough, man. You had to be tough, and you had to be gritty. You had to be, you know what I mean? Like, it was a very predatory. I'm not trying to say it in a bad way. I'm just saying, like, it was more of a dog eat dog thing where, like, if you didn't learn, it was trial by fire. You were gonna get eaten up and just discarded, man. And I saw plenty of times where. After Arena Puerto Rico went under, I went to the doghouse. I probably went before because I kind of saw it coming. And I owe a lot to the doghouse. I feel like they taught me to be tough. I was always tough. Like, I don't go around acting like a tough guy because it's not me. You know what I mean? Like, I know more than anybody that one good swing could take anybody. I don't give a fuck who you are, but. I think they taught me to be able to defend myself and to just be tough, like just be durable, because in the doghouse, they were guys swinging for the fences there, man. I'm not gonna lie, there were guys that were just fucking. I would go in there and I'd have like those butterflies, and it'd be more about along the lines of like, yeah, who's gonna knock my head off tonight? Like, who's gonna. You know what I mean? Like, it's just you had to be very, you just had to have eyes behind the back of your head, and there were good guys there, guys that I still talk to. Grim Reefers, I met him there. He's one of my, like, I love that guy. D, obviously I met D in Reno, Puerto Rico, Homicide, but that was, obviously knew him a little bit better there.
Yeah.
I was never close with him like that, but then Key was there, Lathan, Low Life Louie again, the
Okay.
Christopher Street connection, But those guys, like I said, if they liked you, it was good. If they didn't like you or you fucked up, man, you were getting eaten alive, and that's just what it was. It was a different level of grittiness that it wasn't as systematic, the wrestling business. Like,
bet, yeah.
The fallout nowadays, it's like, you come in, you're trained, I'm just saying from my example, because that's where I coach, but like, I'm sure like you have places like, House of Glory, Monster Factory, Wrestle Pro has, their Creative Pro, of course. So there's a lot of schools nowadays that have very good reputations. Back then it was not as easy.
You got to fight for your own, and you got to find the training spots and all that stuff.
Roy, you have to fight sometimes, let me tell you.
Trust me. I had my fair share, like, especially in the B-boy scene, where like, oh, you won the jam? Okay. You won the money? All right. Let's see if you can make it home tonight.
Oh boy,
it's one of those where like, yeah, you won the battle, but you didn't win the war. So
there you go.
Yeah. So, when did you realize that, like, all right, so clearly you trained and all that stuff. Your first match where you got booked in a really good house, like, who booked you in your first like promotion or something, or what was the very first promotion you were actually in that, like, okay, this is it?
Well, like, again, because there was a lot of outlaw shows in New York, in the early 2000s. So I started training in '98. I didn't have my first pro match, meaning the first match where I got paid, and and I considered it like a legitimate company, like an NW. It was NWA Over the Top. That was in 2001, I want to say, maybe, in 2001. And I wrestled Sam Shields. It was just one of those things where, it was in Burlington, New Jersey. It was at a hotel.
Oh.
It's not even a hotel. It was a motel with a bar, and it was a low boy ring, my favorites, and probably 20 people there. There was nobody there. The following show they did a lot better. It was definitely a bigger crowd. But yeah, I'd say NWA Over the Top would be the first official. But I wrestled at the Doghouse, and I wrestled some of their big shows where, some of the bigger shows would draw 100, 150 people in a small building.
Were you still called Mike Law, or was it
No, Mike Law didn't come until way later.
Okay,
Mike Law didn't come until 2011 or 10 or some shit. I don't know. Yeah.
So what was your name before that?
And Colossal was until way later than that. So yeah. I would say all NWA, as far as an official, like, hey, you got paid, and it was a company that NWA was NWA. It wasn't what it used to be, but it was still like an NWA, right? But that was it. That was in Burlington, New Jersey. They made that freaking place a storage unit now. It's not even a hotel. Yeah.
I drove about it. I want to know for this, like, how did you get booked? Or back then, how did you get booked? Did you know people? Or did you call them and say, hey, this is Mike, I'm a wrestler, MySpace? I don't know.
Right. We didn't even have that. It was a lot of calling people on the phone, man. I miss that. I do miss that about having those conversations with promoters, because I think there's something authentic about that. You know what I mean? I think, when you're sending out emails now and DMs and all that stuff, like, it's just, there's so many companies, and it's so many, like, I'm sure they're getting inundated with stuff. But back in the day, yeah, you picked up the phone, you called, I wasn't. It's weird because even now I don't consider myself the best at networking. It's something that I really have to work on. You know what I mean? But I don't know. I always found the promoters. You know what I mean? Like, we would send our VHS tape along with a resume. You would send that by mail. They'd get the tape. Then when DVDs started being a thing, it was DVDs. So yeah, that was it, man. I mean, I never did the whole like show up and try to get on. I was on. You know what I mean? Like, if I wasn't wrestling it was just kind of an old school mentality I had. I still have it to this day where
That's
I don't.
good. Yeah.
If I'm not on a show, if I'm not wrestling or producing or running the show or if I'm not involved,
Mm-hmm.
I don't I don't go. It's probably not a great thing. You know what I mean? I wouldn't encourage that, but that's
Yeah.
just an old school mentality thing I had from
It's
way
a good
back. And
mentality though. I still have the old school mentality. It's
yeah,
I
some
still
people, yeah, some people are worse.
I still respect my
I say
elders.
try
I
to go
still
out
do
and get
that.
it as
Yeah.
quick as you can.
All right. So, um, time jump a little bit. Uh, when did you? Because clearly with all these promotions now, like CZW, all the Ring of Honor. Did you ever feel like, oh, like this is the big leagues now? Like this is the top indies? Like, did you have that mentality? Okay, these are the top indies. I'm gonna try to get on these cards now or something, or.
Yeah, because ZZW had such a big buzz back in the day. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like ZZW, when Zandig owned it, like, and I had tried. You know what I mean? Here's the thing. Like again, it was one of those things where if I wasn't booked, I wasn't showing up. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It was a very hard headed mentality that I just never shook. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? And because my friend Spiral and he's one of my best friends, got Rest of Soul. He was getting booked along with Ghost Shadow, another good friend of mine. They were getting booked for ZZW, and I was like, I don't know, and then they would encourage me. I was like, you know what? I also saw like the kind of risks some of these guys were taking, and even back then at like 16 years old, it, I people have this different mentality about things. People are like, oh, don't ever, go for it. Don't have any plan Bs, whatever. I just never. I was very realistic with things in my life, and I had seen that. I never wanted to dedicate to the point where if things didn't work out for whatever reason, I'm left with nothing. I didn't want to be Randy the Ram. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
that
yeah,
scares.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, listen, all things considered, I have a beautiful house. This is not my house, though. It's my garage. Like he lives in a shed. No, I
Yeah.
actually have a. You know, it's one of those things that I have been able to be blessed enough to still be in the wrestling business, make my money there, and still be able to separate that from everything else. And everyone is different. People are like, hey, listen, I'm going full. God bless you. I'm not discouraging it. If that's your deal, go for it. If it works, perfect. If it doesn't,
Mm-hmm.
it's just one of those things where I went to college. You know what I mean? I got my bachelor's. Like I always said to myself, like, I don't want to be left in a situation where, oh shit, I put all this time in,
Yeah.
and if it doesn't work out, even if you get to that point where you are signed, there is a shelf life there too, by the way.
Yeah.
Uh, and I don't think a lot of that generation where I came up with understood that. But ZZW, Ring of Honor, I think for me it sucked too because I knew a lot of my friends that I had come up with in the doghouse in Puerto
Mm-hmm.
Rico were there, and I wasn't. You know what I mean? And I felt, and I have to take the blame for it because I plateaued. You know what I mean? I plateaued and was kind of working with the same people, and I wasn't trying to get, you know what I mean? Like I was trying to work and test myself, and that's on me, man. That was more on me not being kind of satisfied, and deep down in my heart, I wasn't. I wasn't happy because I was seeing guys succeed or
And you
get
feel
the
left out?
notoriety.
Did you feel left
Yeah,
out
hell
about
yeah.
it? Yeah.
Fuck yes, absolutely, man. And I think it was a lot of things. I think I was going through a lot of confidence issues myself, man. Like I didn't have confidence in myself. Like I didn't get that until way later in life. I had a self-loathing mentality. Like a kind of like, oh, why me? Like
Mm-hmm.
why makes you so special? And it sucks. It sucks because I went through. I don't want to like sit here and say, oh, I was depressed, but there were times I was depressed. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's the wrestling business is a lot of peaks and valleys, man. And I think that was one of those things where when I was young, in my 20s, I just didn't, I didn't know how to go about it. You know what I mean? And I was getting frustrated and sad that I wasn't booked, and and then it's weird, and I had at times, Max, where I'd come in and out. I'd be like, I was part of the wrestling business and I was away from the wrestling business.
You had your little breaks or something. Cause I do
Hell
that
yeah.
too with this what I do with Caw and all that stuff. It's especially because producing, putting the matches together, making sure everything looks fine, all that stuff. Meanwhile, I have a 9 to 5, and like in real life stuff happens. I'm just like, man, but I have so much people. And you're a content creator, so you're trying to be consistent and all that stuff, and it's tough, especially in what I do, this quote unquote hobby, which is now like, man, I'm learning videography, I'm learning photography, I'm learning spots, I'm learning like how to put a really good match together, storytelling. I'm watching all these freaking podcasts, interviewing you. So I'm soaking everything in, and sometimes you just get burnt out. You get burnt out. I can only imagine because like you're a wrestler, so Friday, Saturday, Sundays must be like booked for you, and now you're teaching at the Fallout, which is what, like Wednesdays or Tuesdays or.
Thursdays for me. It was 2 days during the week, but then we moved to Brooklyn. But yeah, man. I mean, now it's weird because I look back and I'm grateful I didn't give up, and I encourage anyone that is doubting themselves. And unless you really do feel that this isn't for you, you know what I mean? Like I always tell people, listen, always take a step back and kind of reevaluate what is it that you're trying to get out of this. You know, for me, I wanted to travel, man. I just want to travel. And I went to wrestle and meet different people, and like I love the crowd reaction. Like there was just so much that went into it, and that for me, if you would say, "Hey, Mike, did you live your dream?" Absolutely. I got to do a lot of cool things. Do I think that could be boring? Yeah, absolutely. Again, a lot of it falls on me too. You know what I mean? Like a lot of pride, a lot of stubbornness on my part. It's a family thing,
Yeah.
My refusal to ever ask for help. I'm not good at that. I'll tell you right now. I can't ask for help.
You don't like asking for help?
Nope.
Why?
Nope. Right? Like it's hard because part of it's your pride, but then part of it's like, okay, now what do I owe you? What do I owe you for this?
Yeah. It's funny because I'm a little stubborn in that way where like I'm not gonna ask for help. If a person saw me struggling, okay, but I'm not the type to ask for help. I'm so stubborn. I only ask for help for people, and like especially what I do. Like if there's somebody who I know in my head is better in that, I'll go to that person. Yo, how did you do this? Or like, can you help me with this?
I'll tell you right now. The last 2 weeks is the first time, dude, that I've reached out to anybody regarding something pretty big, I would say.
Yeah.
In years, man. It's very hard for me to do it. I don't know why. I think I would say probably some of my parents kind of like don't rely on other people and don't try to ask favors because you're gonna owe people, and I don't know. And that's been embedded in me, and it's not a great attitude to have because sometimes people just want to help, but then they're probably again getting inundated with stuff, and it's like for me, I'll help people out because I feel like. Shit, if you're a good person, I think you bring value, I'm going to help out, man. Yeah. You don't even have to ask a lot of times. I just, it just depends where we're at in life, really.
So I got a question, because I know you do a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff outside of wrestling. When did that start?
That started with FWE, when I used to help run FWE in 2011. Okay. And I was like, I think it was in my late 20s at that point. I was like, you know what? I want to be able to help others again, kind of get to a next level. So with FWE, the idea was like, okay, I wrestled a few shows because obviously I was going to be there. I had to help produce these things. I had to help, with the booking and all that. So it went from that, and then we had like the worst fucking match. It was so bad that I don't think it's ever seen the light of day. It was myself and Hawaii Allen versus Deranged. Special K fame, and the promoter, the owner type, Boris Saboka, and again, I don't know if it was that bad. From what Jordan said, it was the owner of FW at the time. He goes, it was so bad that they removed it from the DVD. There's only 7 on Empire City Showdown. Yeah. If anyone has a DVD of Empire City Showdown, there's only 6 matches on there. From the one that I got, the copy I got, there's only 6 matches, not 7. They completely removed that from the annals of time.
Oof.
But at that point, I said, you know what, my focus has to be back here. I don't want the pressure of having to deal with having a match, you know what I mean, and having all that crazy shit, and then having to focus on, the attendance, making sure this is being done properly, making sure this is being done, making sure, Jordan was on commentary, making sure he's being taken care of.
Yeah.
So it was all that, man, and I just to myself, I really do like the idea of helping put these things together, and I love running the events, and it was stressful, but from 2011 to 2015, that's what I did, man. And again, man, not a lot of guys are gonna give me uh, the credit, which is whatever, I listen, I know who the real ones are, but I helped a lot of people during that time, and I know certain guys got some of the fucking best paydays they've ever seen before then. So
Oof.
there's that, and I always try to give back, man. I always try to leave more, the business better than when I first started, and to me, the goal now is to leave a legacy, like of work, of people like, yo, that fucking Mike Law, he was great, man. He was entertaining. Like, I just hope I get to see those kind of things before I'm dead and buried.
So, how was teaching at the Fallout? When did you realize you want to become like an instructor and all that stuff? Like,
I never wanted to be a coach.
you
I never
never
wanted to be a
wanted.
coach. I never. Here's the thing: like, I had been approached by at least 3 different places about being a coach at their schools, and I didn't want it because I hadn't felt that I had accomplished what I needed to have accomplished in the
Mm-hmm.
wrestling business. So for me, it was very much like, how am I going to lead these guys when I'm in a situation where I still want to? I want more. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But then, Joaquin Morales is one of those guys that he has such a great reputation, man, and I have so much admiration and respect for him that I was like, when he had asked, he's like, well, I'm opening up this wrestling school. He goes, how far do you live from Long Island? Now, mind you, dude, I had never gotten booked for Battle Club.
Uh-huh.
I got booked once. I
Yeah.
did get booked once, but I, like an idiot, double booked myself in Ohio, and I don't think it was ever forgiven. But before that, I had never wrestled for Battle Club, and so
Okay.
he had asked me about that, and I didn't know what it was about. I don't even know how my name got into the whole thing.
Mm.
But then, long story short, man, he brought me on board, and then Masha was on board. So I was, okay, cool. And then Steve Pena. So initially it was me, Steve Pena, and Masha. We were the coaches at the fall. And then Santi came in, and he started training again. He got the itch, if you will.
Of course.
Um, and then he started training, and then maybe made him a coach, and it's just been great, man. Like, seriously, it's been one of the most fulfilling things in my entire life. Seriously, like, not just in wrestling, it really is one of the most fulfilling things to be able to pass the stuff that I've learned,
Mm-hmm.
the stuff that I've learned, stuff that I did that you should do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's not always like, hey, I've it's all been clean sailings here. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I've messed up plenty of times, and I've told students this is what you shouldn't do either. Um, and I hope they learn from that. But man, Max, I'll say it's the most fulfilling thing, brother. I love, being called coach is just still. And my buddy Danny,
It's
who
an
I've known,
interesting. Yeah.
he's like, it's just weird when the kids are calling you coach, man. I don't know.
Do you
Because
feel
I've known
old?
Danny, my buddy Danny, I've known him for 20 odd years. So, like, he's known me since we were teenagers.
Yeah. Do you feel old when they call you coach?
No, because
No.
being old is a mentality, man.
Mm-hmm.
Age it's a bullshit thing. You know what I mean? Like, I think people tell you, oh, well, at 40 you gotta be this or have that. Man, that's a sociological, like, mind fuck. You could be. I mean, look, from certain things, mind you. All right, let's just clear that slate. People misinterpret that.
Yeah.
But as far as being an athlete or being a wrestler or feeling a certain way at a certain age, man, I feel great, dude. I've treated my body well. I still obviously train and work out. Um, I don't think people would notice if I told you my age. I don't think people would be like, "Oh, wow, shit!" Like, I think a lot of people could
You know what's
probably.
funny is so the whole b-boy thing. Like after I got initiated and everything, and
Yeah, yeah.
my one of my crew members opened up a studio. Like I was just there practicing, and out of nowhere, this random kid knocked on the door and say, "Hey, are you a break dancer?" Like, yeah. Like, do you teach? I'm like, no. He's like, I'm trying to learn how to dance like Chris Brown or some shit. And I'm like, I don't do Chris Brown, but I can teach you how to break, you know? He's like, yeah. So next thing I taught that kid, he brought in 5 of his friends. And next thing you know, I end up teaching a bunch of like teenagers and all that stuff how to break dance in Jersey City. And I see them sometimes in New York now, in Broadway or...
Really?
Yeah. And Sunny Kiss is a perfect example of that. Because I'm like, oh snap! And here I am in Capitol, like taking pictures and stuff like that. So it is a good feeling because I was teaching for like 6 years straight. You know, just
wow.
I would go to work, then from Monday, Saturday, Sundays it was an NBK dance studio. I taught a lot of kids, man, how to break. You know, now they're like
it's fulfilling. It's fulfilling, isn't it?
It is a very fulfilling thing because I rather what's funny? It's like one of those things where like. Very cliche, like they could be doing something else, but I'm getting them off the streets to become a dancer. You know, they're spending their whatever time they could. Like they go straight from school to dance. So sometimes they'll be doing homework and all that stuff, and next thing you know, all right, you know, they're learning. It's pretty cool. I taught at the Boys and Girls Club. I taught at a YMCA. I taught at, choreographed a lot of debuts, cotillion, sweet 16s. Mid-20s was like all that for me, man. Just breakdancing and breakdancing and all that stuff. So it's pretty fun.
Very cool, man. Very cool. Listen, it's a passion of yours and you love it. Like, that's what they mean. Like, hey, you never work a day in your life when you do that sort of thing. And like I said, listen, there've been times where, like it's been a long day and then I have to go to the fall. I'm like, and then honestly, just the energy, man, that I get from the talent and the athletes. I call them athletes because I truly believe they all are. That just reinvigorates me, man. It just keeps me going. And I got to thank Joaquin Morales and Paul Mendoza and Elliot Martinez, and Ray Brad, of course. Without those guys, listen, I'm always going to be, unless I decide, hey, I'm done with wrestling and I'm not going to, people don't realize this. I will always be part of wrestling because it's in my blood. But, I feel that it added another layer to my career, which is why
for sure.
So important,
Yeah. I could see it. You really did one of those, in my eyes, you did so much, especially at the age of 14, 15. You technically paid your dues and you know what you're talking about. You experienced it, you lived it especially for the Gen Xers or something. I totally, cause I get it. I see it and I'm just like, wow, I can relate. So I got a question. What advice do you have for people legit, because you told them don't give up on your dreams and all that stuff. So I guess people who are in the wrestling scene, they're technically got their foot in the door, all that. Not the ones who want to become, but they already got their foot in the door.
Right.
And you feel like, I don't know if this is for me, or what do you have advice for them?
Man, I'll tell you this. It was hard in our time, right? Because of all the stuff I told you about traveling and got to call people, VHS.
Oh, and
that,
also,
right?
I'm sorry to cut you off, but for people who said I'm not athletically gifted, but I love it and I'm doing it, I'm passionate about it, because there are some people who aren't really athletically gifted. It took me a while as a person who danced, who who didn't have any rhythm, right. And I'm still man, these guys started when they were 14, 15, and here I am in my I'm in my 20s and I'm trying. I loved rock for God knows how long to realize I love this. I love this battle mentality. I love this dance shit. But they had to train me stamina, weightlifting, upper body strength. I had to learn that. I wasn't athletically gifted. And there were times where I felt this is not for me, but I'm legit getting calluses, I'm bruised up, and I'm still hungry. So
that's it, man. I mean, you said it right there. If you're not athletic, then make yourself. Like I said, I was not an athlete. I just trained myself to be one. You know what I mean? Do what you have to. At the end of the day, especially now, like, it's not a body shaming thing to me. It's not. It's about, hey, are you capable as an athlete who is supposed to now take my life in your hands, take your own life in your own hands, able to do what you're supposed to do in order to ensure that, we're able to get this shit done and get it done day in, day out. That's my biggest thing. You don't have to have a six pack, but you should be able to be athletic enough to, be able to lift someone properly. It is a very physically demanding sport. People talk about like how it's changed, but if anything, the wrestling business now is more athletic than it's ever been because of the fact that there's so much athleticism involved with wrestling. It's, what I mean? Like, it's just like people don't realize that's the reason why you have to go to the gym. That's why the reason you have to cardio. That's the reason why you have to, you eat right and whatnot. But I would say for my advice is, listen, if you like you just demonstrated, Max, you said exactly what I would advise. If you really want this, you're going to do whatever it takes to get it. You're not going to make a million fucking excuses as to why you can't be at an event, learn from your coaches, DM us, apply the stuff that we tell you day in, day out to do and not to do, which as you said, as you questioned it, but you went through with it, dude. And that's something you have to find in yourself. You can't teach that shit. You could be the greatest instructor in the world, but if the person doesn't want the desire to be there, doesn't fucking matter.
Actually,
Go back home, man, because I think you said it earlier. I think more than the money is time, man. You never get that shit back, and nobody wants to waste it.
Nobody want to waste your time on a person who, that's true.
Nope. And I've already tapped a few times, and it sucks. It sucks because you have that mentality that everyone that goes to that door is going to come out with the ability to make an impact, whether it's on the level of Japan, whether it's on the level of, the indies, whether it's AEW, WWE. Like, the goal for me as a coach personally is to make sure that these people have the tools and the knowledge to get to that level if they desire to. You know what I mean? Some people, but even if you don't decide, you want to be a weekend warrior, you want to be one of those guys that wrestles once a month, don't half-ass this shit. It's unsafe. There've been times where I've wrestled in companies that are not known. People don't know, like, I've never heard of them. And I've wrestled guys that go, you know what, man, if you apply yourself, you would fucking do stuff. But they don't, to them, this is good. And I appreciate the fact that they're so dedicated and good at what they do that they do this once a month. But it's the guys and girls that do this shit almost every weekend that expect success because they're out there. No, man, that's not how it works. You still have to be good at what you do, especially with as much stuff there is on social media. And you have all these, you have AEW, WWE, you have NXT. It's like Ring of Honor, New Japan. You have all this stuff available to learn from, and just people constantly making the same errors and just being unsafe with shit, man. Dude, I'm knock on wood, man. Like 20 plus years in, and I've never needed a surgery in my career.
What's funny?
I mean? Like,
I was about to ask you that because, like you're training, but you're also trusting a person with your body, and they're trusting themselves with their bodies on you because you are wrestling, and there is trust. And you said it yourself, like, you never got injured, and I watching you wrestle, with camera and all that stuff, and I'm taking your pictures, I'm just like, yeah, this guy's really consistent. Like, you knock on wood, you never got an injury and all that stuff. Is it because?
We'll clarify. I have been injured.
Oh, okay.
Listen, I've had concussions. I think if you've been around long enough, you'll get a concussion. That's what I doubt. I'm not going to mention the person's name, but it was a Capitol show. I hurt my my collarbone. They ran a running knee, and I think it was my right. I popped my collarbone, and I think Stan Styles popped it back in, and I never had surgery because of wrestling. I've never had surgery in my life, thank God. But I've never had surgery because of wrestling, or but I've definitely gotten injured. I've had a fractured toe. But I look at the stuff that I've done, and I'm like, shit, I probably would have been worse off, and I'm grateful that, that hasn't happened. But I've also been very tactical as to when to do things and when to go out, just, I see some of these guys and they're 23 years old already with like 2 knee surgeries. Like, God damn, dude.
Do you feel like it's your, so in CAW we call it, different wrestling styles and all that stuff. So
right.
Do you feel like your style of wrestling, that what you do and throughout whatever you learn is like, this is what I'm comfortable with and whatnot? And when you're working with an opponent, do you feel like, okay, we're not going to do that? We're most definitely not going to do
that. I will say, listen, there have been times where things have happened in wrestling, and it does, it's bound to happen, guys. And if you're in this business, you have to know that incidents happen, or even legitimate stuff that, that maybe guys intentionally try to do,
Mm-hmm.
I remember I took a Saito suplex, landed right on my neck, and lost all feeling, dude. Literally, I knew I was hurt. Like, I landed, boom, and I was like, my feet went numb and everything. And I was yelling at the referee. I don't even remember who the referee was, but they had to be incompetent because, like, I'm yelling at him, I'm hurt, and I was, I was like, my neck got fucked up, and I was pissed, man, because I had wrestled twice that day, and then this was the third match of the freaking night, and, I was like, listen, I'm all about, like, laying it in, dude. I'm not anyone will tell you, like, I go in, but, I just, like, just things like that, man. It just, I was very pissed off, is all I'll say. And I don't want to go delve too deep into it, but it's just one of those things, man, that I pride myself on just my conditioning, I've again, I knock on wood, man, I've supplemented myself and know that I probably should have broken a lot worse than
you made it home. As long as you made it home that day and you rest, like,
yeah.
That was like,
but as far as that, I don't know, man. I just I there's things that guys will, like, I'm like, what the fuck, like, slow down there. You know what I mean? Like, we are the magicians of this fucking thing, not the fan. Listen, the fans can say whatever they want, man. Like, if you buy a ticket, you're coming to the event. You're allowed to voice your displeasure, your dislike, whatever. I came up in a different era. Things were a lot more crude back then. So I'm really used to, like, people saying stupid shit. But with that being said, we as the wrestlers have to take the business back. We got to go back to the way of, like, we're going to tell you how this works, the other way around. And I think it's switched a little bit, man. And I think
I feel like fans know more than the wrestlers, when it actually should be the other way around.
Well, let's not get it twisted, Max. We know more than they do, always, no matter. No, because at the end of the day, like, they're not trained to do what we do.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? You could be a savant and know all the dates and stuff like that. You can know that, WrestleMania 3 was on so-and-so day at this time and had this attendance.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a difference ultimately in being able to physically get in there and do what we do, and the things that we do and how we do them and why we do them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I illustrate to all our students, is that, wrestling fans are not dumb, but at the end of the day, you hold the key. You know what I mean? That's just the way it is.
So for the guys, all right, so because you said that you come from different time period and now, so when you educate them, you always say slow it down. What does that mean? Like, you want to get your shit in, but pace yourself in a way in the ring, or like your match is too fast, slow it down, take it easy.
No, I don't subscribe to that, because at the end of the day, like, here's the thing about wrestling, especially nowadays, there's so many different styles, man. I can't tell, the luchadors, I can't tell guys from AAA and the guys who exhibit excellent high level lucha libre, slow down. Fuck, who am I to say that? You know what I mean? Like, I think you have to go according to what style of match you're having, what kind of style you're trying to exhibit,
Mm-hmm.
your opponent's abilities. There's a lot of variables there that people just, it's not a generalization of like, hey, slow it down, or you're doing too much. Seth Rollins, remember doing a seminar with Seth Rollins, and he said it best. He goes, he, I don't want to like bastardize and kind of like just like misquote him because that would be unfair, but it was kind of the idea that like, it's not the idea of doing too much. It's like it's knowing when to do it and knowing how it makes sense with the story that needs to be unfolded. Chris Hero posted something I thought was genius about how in Japan it's about this. It's more of a sport. In Mexico, it's this. In the United States, it's this. I think it's knowing your audience. It's knowing what you're trying to convey out there, man. At the end of the day, it's like it's a very physical sport what we do, and you have to have the mentality of like, what am I trying to do to get these fans to talk about me? That's the business.
That's actually that makes a lot of sense.
That people don't talk about is hey, if you and Max and I are wrestling each other tonight, with all due respect, I need to let people. At the end of the night, I need to secure my spot here in this company. I need to secure that when I'm out there after the show or during intermission, whenever, that people are going to buy my merchandise so I could take home money. You know what I mean? Because that's the business aspect of what we do. That is not necessarily lost, but it isn't like expanded on, I don't think.
So I want to play a little role play here. So let's say, okay, you and I are. It's like a thousand. There's like an audience of like 500. It's me and you. We're in the back and whatnot.
Right.
We're both clearly you and I are both wrestlers and all that stuff. How would you pitch me? Okay, Max, this is what we're gonna do. All right. Should I say, yo, Mike, you know what? You're in control of our match, man. You tell me what to do. So how would you go? How would our conversation go about?
Well, it's normally how it would go with the veterans anyway. You always let the veteran. You know what I mean? Like,
you're the veteran, clearly. So
right. Well, yeah, but I think that's a very much a lost thing among people's heads, which is one of the reasons I think there should be enforcers in locker rooms. I truly believe that. I definitely think if there's one thing in wrestling I wish they brought back were enforcers in the locker rooms. That, like, hey, this dude got to be brought down a notch. That shit, that back in the day, that didn't happen. If you had a little bit of ego, you got shut down really quick. But regardless, the way I would go about it, like, okay, like I start from the back to the beginning.
You work from age from the.
What are we trying to get out of this?
Oh,
yeah. What are we trying to get? What's the end result here? You know what I mean? Like,
that's interesting because that's how I construct the matches when I do my HLR. Is like I start from the back and work the way up to the beginning. So meaning like, what's the story do I want to tell? So Mike, I want to tell the story. Basically, I'm the baby face. You're basically the heel and whatnot. But at the end of it, I want you to get the W, but I still gotta find a way to get over. Does that make sense in a way? Yeah.
Well, that's the way I would do it. I would go from the back forward. From the end to the beginning. That's the way I would do it.
Do majority of people do that or no? Or do you teach your students that?
That's the way. Yeah. That's the way I go about it, because you have to know what the end result is here. What are we trying to get accomplished? Because without knowing that, we're in 10 different directions. But if I know where we're headed, then at that point I could go, okay, well, this is what we need to do to get your whole thing to that end point, and this is what I need to do to get myself to that end point. But if we're starting from the beginning, it's kind of like, where we're going. I don't know where we're going. We're off to like fucking Arkansas. Like that. The roadmap has to be dictated from, in my opinion, and it has to be from the end point to the beginning. So start from the end, work your way to the front.
Okay, so you get the W, you hit your finisher. I gotta find myself to get over. So okay, boom. There's the ending that I pitched to you, and whatnot. So how would you start it off now?
Well, and I'm a heel. You're the heel.
Oh, you're the heel. I'm the baby face. You hit your finisher, but I still gotta find a way to get over.
Well, if I was going to do it that way, I would probably say that you would be going strong towards the end. I would find a way to, you know, either do a cheap heat move, something to kind of get you back down to the point where it would make me look like a complete shithead
Yeah.
to get over on you. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
you would have to shine strong on me towards the end, meaning people like Max is winning this. There's no way he's not going to win. And then I pull something cheap, either
And then
referee.
is this basically where you call it in the ring already, or we plan out our match in behind the wherever?
Listen, man. And people are gonna. I don't like to plan shit, man.
Yeah. So you like calling it.
I like
when
to.
You're here. Ah, okay, that's cool.
Yeah, well, it's just one of those things that I'm just kind of like. I think, and I get why things are overproduced. I completely understand, especially from TV standpoint. I understand that you don't want the same shit at match after match after match, the same moves. That's an indie thing. But at the end of the day, like, I just want to go out there, man, and I just want the crowd. Like, I want to take them on that roller coaster.
You feel what the crowd feels. You're hearing what they're saying. Oh, it's really working. And that's
also realize this too. If there's 9 matches in the card, most of them are probably going to call everything. So you have to do to stand out from everyone else. And if it's one of those things where, hey, we're going to have a solid, match, and we don't have to go over A to Z because they've already seen most of it, then we need to go a different route. You know what I mean? We can't go down the same path that everyone else has done, because then what makes us any special? What makes me different? You know what I mean? Like, then it's the same regurgitated shit over and over again, which is the issue that's happening across the board with wrestling, is that it's the same moves, the same body types, the same guys, the same high-flying maneuver. It's the same fucking thing. And wrestling has always been great when it was different. When it was like, you didn't have to have a technical masterpiece. Maybe we have a brawl, and I get the better of you until you finally, find it out, and you start taking over. Boom! All of a sudden, you got me rocked against some ropes. You're going for your finish. I counter. I push you towards the ref. The referee stops you last second before you collide with them. I give you the shot from the back, maybe a low blow, whatever. I pull you in, finish on you. It gives you. You got to realize that sometimes the effort that you put in will be enough to get you over. Meaning, even if you lose, because I've lost more than I've won in this business, the fans will gravitate towards you because they go, you know what, he lost, but man, he died on that sword. He didn't back down, and he fought his ass off. And the only reason that the other guy won was because they pulled some shady bullshit. And everyone who's lived this life long enough has been there where someone's pulled shady shit on them to get over, in life. So people get that. And I don't think you need to do anything. I don't think you need to, like, there doesn't need to be a big pop off at the end. It could just be like, wow, I had him and some bullshit happened and I got screwed over. And as long as I did my job well enough and I get out of Dodge after I win, the fans, for the most part, would react positively to you in that sense of like, you know what, he didn't win, but we're gonna respect him, man. We're gonna put some respect because the other dude, put a beating on him and then he fought back, and he never died, which is a big thing for me. Don't die, and he got screwed over, man. Nobody likes that.
That's a good story. That's a good story. I think that.
Tale as old as time.
How do you feel about thigh slaps? Too many thigh slaps?
Oh, fuck, yeah. It's not even like anyone tries to hide this shit anymore. You know what I mean? Like, it's what we do is it's a magic trick. It's hands, like it's hand over eye coordination. And, like there's guys that still do it well. There's guys that you don't need to do it for everything. You know what I mean? Like this, it's an effect. It's an effect that we provide for something that is significant. But when we're doing it all the time, it just lessens the significance of it. So, listen, there are guys that are on TV that are doing that on a weekly basis. Fuck, I know, man. I don't know. So I'm not a fan of them all the time. I think that you kind of like. I know. God rest his soul, Jimmy Rave, man. I that's one thing that he was very big on. He's like, don't just leave that shit when it's appropriate, man. Like, and I agree, man.
So I got two things before we end this off. Because I'm part of the community. We call it the community, right? It's basically there's indie wrestling, professional wrestling, and there's the community where it's a really big thing in the video game community where I'm really trying to like get this out there and whatnot. So outside of the wrestling, because there is a thing called HLR, which is basically we legit use 2 or 3 controllers. We play by ourselves, but we're legit producing like these matches. It's not just AI versus AI like going at it. No, we're legit constructing and whatnot. So at the end of the day, it's us, the person producing the match. The most important thing, which I tell people, is okay, yeah, that's your CAW, that's the CAW that created, but at the end of the day, you still have to promo. That's the only way you're gonna stand out. What are your tips for promos?
That's a great question. Because I will say this: one of the best camps I ever did was Ring of Honor camp. I learned a lot that day, or that weekend, I should say. It was a whole weekend. Yeah. I wish they still did camps like that, because that was very, very enjoyed a lot of it, learned a lot from like a lot of the guys there. I think you need to get people emotionally invested in what you do. You know what I mean? Like, listen, there have been times where I've hit, I've swung, and I've missed with those. And there's times where I felt like I've done some great shit that, maybe 10 years from now, I'll be like, oh man, that was a great promo. But I think people have to. I think it could be clever, depending on who you are as who you claim to be. But I also think, you have to tell a story in your promos. I like I said, man, I was a 15-year-old pimply face, anorexic, pale skin Puerto Rican, looking to make a name for himself. And I can't tell you how many times I cried myself to sleep because I was, I would get the shit beat out of me. And I would think that I wasn't cut out for the wrestling business. And then we fast forward to 2023, and I've gotten to wrestle in Canada and Dominican Republic and in over 15 states. I've held numerous titles. I've been in the Super 8. I've been on TV. Like, I've gotten paid very well to do this. It's just like all this stuff that I thought I was not capable of, I'm capable of. And now I see a guy like you, Max Chris, you come in and, you haven't paid your dues, man. You've never had to come up the way I did. And you have social media and all these different avenues to be successful. And now you're here bitching about it. And that's where you and I are different. That's why I'm going to show you why, and then that's it, man. And sometimes you tell a story of like who you are and why you're here. And then you tell a story why you have to sustain from Max Crystal. Why do I not like this guy? Because he didn't have to come the way I did, man. Like, it's just as simple as that. I don't have to say anything visceral. I'm just be like, I don't believe he's earned what I've earned. And I don't believe he wants this more than I do, because I would give my life for it. And I have. He hasn't. There you go.
That's good.
Sometimes you got to be real with it sometimes. I say this.
It's funny. Like, I totally get that. Like,
Eddie Kingston for my money because of great promos. But at the same time, you got a guy like Bray Wyatt who, it really has to be from the heart, and it has to be kind of a reflection of what you really would say. The day that you're like, I'm going to kick your ass this Saturday at the VFW, at 8 p.m. for an APWA, listen, if you can pull that shit off and people dig it, then you're doing it right. You know what I mean? Like, at the end of the day, like, I can't say what is over and what's not, because I've seen shit that I was like, that sucked. I don't know how people think that shit is good, and people love it. And at the end of the day, that the fans have that. They're not going to tell me what to do, how to do it, because that's not happening. But they have that ability to make something popular that, maybe someone like me be like, yo, that sucked, dude. I wouldn't, but, like, that's where the power lies, dude.
Do you write do you write your promos, or you have like bullet points and like this is what I'm gonna say, but I'm just gonna say
I should probably write it because I've had some great lines that I've said to myself in the shower or in traffic. You know, like
I totally know what you're talking about. When I'm walking to work,
and I probably could write the stuff down, but I forget it by the time I really, I'm in front of a camera.
You know, it's funny because I walk to work when walking, and I'm just reciting a promo in my head, like, oh, that sounds good. And then
it's good to write down. I encourage a lot of my students to, or I say our students. That's not fair to say because it's 6 football. They're all great people, man. I'm very lucky. But yeah, I encourage them to write move sets down, promos, ideas. A lot of stuff you have to write down, man, because especially, with the fallout with wrestling nowadays or just in life in general, people are being bombarded with so much stuff that if you're not writing stuff down, it's just hard because you have to have something to go back to. Like, oh, okay, this is what, and it's also great to keep record of stuff, maybe, you end up doing this 20, 30 years and you're like, shit, you write all this stuff down. Like, this is what I said, on June 15th of 2022, like sick,
So last one, and I'm sorry this is so long. I don't know if you had a time limit or not. For the last one is as a person who's been through a lot of promotions and from east, west, north, south, different countries and whatnot, and as a person who runs a virtual promotion, how do you have any tips to make sure that you should want to stand out as a promotion? Because clearly it's the ring and the match and the card and all that stuff, but there is different styles, lucha, all that stuff. So how do you want to stand out as a promotion to make sure that this is not just another cookie cutter indie promotion or whatnot? Like, how would you differentiate?
That's exactly the way you phrased it, man. You can't be cookie cutter, dude. It's like you can't be the next WWE. Why try to be that? You know what I mean? You could take elements of that and make it your own. You know what I mean? Like, I'm a big production guy. When FW was running, I said we need to have better lighting. We need to have a sick entrance. You know what I mean? The rest, the ring itself wasn't the best, but whatever. Like it was hit or miss with that. But like I was a very big we got to do lighting here, man. We got to do I'm a big production guy when it comes to like the wrestling events, the lighting and all that jazz. Not using the same fucking talent over and over again. Like it's like the same matches, the same guys doing the same things. It's like there's so much talent out there in general, let alone the Tri-Center. Let's keep it here. Dude, I don't know how some of these matches are it's constantly regurgitated.
Do you believe in exclusivity? Exclusivity, meaning like an exclusive talent, like you keep it there, boom, like similar. Like you're never gonna see Roman Reigns and that's exclusive. But then you have AEW exclusive in AEW, but some AEW guys are in Indies too, or in Impact and all that stuff. So
it's a little tough, man. I think if you're one of the major companies, you're paying these people a lot of money, and that's an investment. For me, I don't know if that's what the route I would go if I had that kind of money. You know what I mean? I would you got to keep it. You got to keep it here. But as far as the independents, that's where they are. They're the independents, man. The company's gonna cover me, and it was business, you know what I mean? At the end of the day, I got to make my money.
Yeah, exactly.
Bills I got to pay. Yeah. I think not so much exclusivity, but a respect as far as hey, if so and so is being used in this situation, let's keep, let's try to protect that. You know what I mean? Let's if you're running the same market, I know I'm not saying this is always possible. Sometimes it's what it is, but if so-and-so's a champion here, let's not try to fucking make him the pre-show match over here or the, job guy. I think there needs to be a mutual respect for that.
Like the value of the person.
Talented. Yeah. If the person's talented too, you don't want to you don't want to make him look like shit either. I think that, but here's the thing: there's enough talent, brother. There's enough. I mean, off the top of my head, Ken Broadway is a guy that is fantastic. You know what I mean? Like he's a guy. You know, like Ken Broadway. Gangone is another guy because I've you know, obviously he's another guy that I've. Hold on, someone's pulling. I'm just like, who the fuck is this guy? Sorry, it's just I live in a pretty big.
Totally understand.
Like I have like a lot of square footage, so when somebody pulls into my driveway, I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's a big street, dude. You know, you could make a U-turn. Anyway, sorry about that, guys.
It's fine.
Yes, but you know, guys like that, you know, Steve Pena, you know, like even guys in the Connecticut scene, you know, like you have Gabe Sky out there, you know, just like, well, he's a Long Island guy, but the point being, like, you know, I was thinking, like, you know, you have the Miracle Generation guys, you know, you have, there's just so much talent, you know, in this area alone that you can mix and match that shit. You don't have to be. And I think when We Are Wrestling, they are doing that. And I think Battle Club does a great job. I like Battle Club because they bring guys from the South out here. And then there's a lot of talent. There's like Zuka King is a guy that I enjoy. You know, Montana Black. I know, you know, he goes by a different name, but I always be a Montana Black guy. You know, there's just so much talent out there. Movie Mike, you know, I think there's just so much opportunity to mix it that when I see the same guys ad nauseum, you know, that's why even myself, I try to. There was a time in New York where I was getting booked a lot in the areas, and I'm like, oh god, I'm being that guy. I'm being the guy who's like, you get to see one weekend in Queens and then next weekend in Brooklyn, and it doesn't.
It kind of
you
funny.
Know what I mean?
It's funny.
I don't want to be that guy.
It was kind of funny because I do remember that, and I was like,
yeah.
It's like you were a baby face in Cali, so when I saw you in another promotion,
yeah.
I'm like, he's heel.
Yeah,
that kind of hurt me in a way. That kind of hurt. Cause I did back-to-back events, and I remember seeing it. I'm like, oh shit, Steve's here. I'm like, oh wait, he's heel.
yeah. So it was one of those things where that's where I'm going at with that. It's like there's just so much talent out there. You know what I mean? That you know, Darius Carter, of course. You know, like O'Shea Edwards, John Davis, Moff. You know, Dan Moff, Sean Donovan. You know, I'm just naming the guys. You know, like there's plenty of guys. You know, not to mention the young. You know, a lot of the youngins from the Fallout Shelter, Anthony Gamble, Big Cuzzo. Like, there's no fucking excuse that with all the companies running in New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut, that we're seeing the same exact shit over and over again. Everyone just has to be different, man. And listen, take from me. I was not that I was a player, but listen. I didn't really, and I give my brother Steve all the credit in the world for the barbell. Which she's lying back there. She's taking a nap. There she is.
That Barbie. That stands out for you. Yeah.
She had a rough couple weeks. But, you know, and even if you're going to use the same guys, just make different matches. That's all I'm saying. It's like, why are we seeing the same guys versus the same guys every week, everywhere? It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Some places can get away with that because it's not so much the company. Like, the company's over. Like they have an audience that they've built that's that niche audience that they're gonna come to these shows anyway. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like the ones that are trying to make a name for themselves, that are using and doing the same matches at the bigger companies. That doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
Because no one's gonna mistake the letters, dude. Like, people are smart. It's like, hey, this is what this company is. This is what this company is, and you know, you just can't. I think the key to promotions is like, I don't know. I'll throw a match out to you that you probably never seen. Darius Carter versus Schlack. Never happened before.
Never happened.
But it'd be like, this is a fucking interesting match. I'd probably go see it because Schlack is a guy that has a reputation and Darius has a reputation. And I've never seen them wrestle each other.
That's true.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
You know? And it's not a dream match. If you build it like with storylines and with promos, which, you know, again, something like you said before, people should be doing, then it'll sell itself. You know, like, that's part of you as a promoter to get on the talent's ass, man, female, whatever, to go out there and cut promos. I know Joe Kim and Hokey are very much big on that shit too.
Yeah, because in this community that I'm in and whatnot, it's more because the way that I technically got myself over is outside of being a really good producer is more like my call is my call. But when I dress up as my car and all that stuff, so I look like my fucking car, because that's what the 2K engine now. You can put your face scan and everything. And
Right.
But I was legit cutting live promos and whatnot, and I was like, if I want to get better, I got a promo. Like, people are gonna watch my matches anyway, whatever. But I want to learn how to promo, and shout out to Roger Mendez. He really good guy who actually took his time. I remember I learned some promo stuff from you when I talked to you back in I think Invictus. I was like, yo, like, you have any tips for promos and all that stuff. So yeah. And I really appreciate that. I always tell people in the community I'm in, like, yo, hit up these guys. You never know. They might answer you back and give you a really good answer, or sometimes say fuck you, whatever. But at the end of the day, like, ask. If you want to get better at promos, ask.
The worst you get is a no. Whatever.
But exactly.
I always try to. It's hard at times because I do. I'm not complaining. I really appreciate that people value my opinion so much that they ask me. So it's not a bother, but I can't always get back to people right away. But I will get back to people because I know there's a lot of people that ask for me to view their matches. And honestly, like, if you're a student of the Fallout, you're gonna get precedent over anyone else anyway. Yeah. But I appreciate you reaching out to me because like I said, I will always try to help, man. That's one thing people can't say. It's like I will always, if I can, I will.
Exactly. Yeah. But with that being said, I appreciate you doing this, bro. It's a learning experience, and hopefully I have you again some other time. I know you're a very busy man. You do this, you produce. I mean, look at your bio: commentator, booker, producer.
I miss commentary. I love commentary.
I got better at commentary. I love commentary.
Plant my feet next, but I'm like, I love commentary. I love producing and and booking. So we'll see what happens.
Do you have any final last words to the community that I'm in? Like, hey, get better or something? I don't know.
I mean, listen, just like, I think the best thing is just passing down whatever knowledge you have, man. Just leave everything leave it better than when you last, you started. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's one thing where people get a certain way. They want to keep everything. They want to keep all the, like, their ideas and gifts, close, because I don't know if it's an insecurity thing or a greed thing, but just spread it out there, man. Like, you'll be shocked at who notices your gifts, when you're out there actually. And I'm not saying, like, just bang people over the head with it. No. I'm the type of person, 23 years in, I still wait for people to ask me because I don't think it's necessarily my place, oddly enough, to tell people what they can and can't do or how they should do it. That's not me. It's never been me. If people want an honest response or an honest opinion of what I think, then I always lend that. But I always say that my advice is just, man, don't half-ass anything and always just give your best. Like, this world, the time we have on this earth is so limited. You have no idea that to half-ass things, you might as well not do it. If you're gonna be part of this community, just do it full tilt, man, and give your absolute best.
Cool. Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate this, Mike. I really do.
Oh, absolutely, man. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, guys. Well, that's our interview with the colossal Mike Law. Make sure to check him out. The Instagram is
It's very simple. Colossal Mike Law on all social media. I don't make it hard. It's not Colossal Mike Law 1 2 3 4. It's Colossal Mike Law all over Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. Boom.
All right.
Follow me.
Follow him, guys. Follow him. All right, man. Later.
All right. Later.